The Survivor Specialists are back, and today I am joined by Sabiyah from Survivor 45 for the second time. We had Sabiyah
Yeah.
on last season too for the same episode. I don't know if you realize that or not, but we did episode 6, predictions and power rankings. So it's just cyclical. It's all working out.
Yeah. I feel like it was around the same time, but I wasn't sure. Thanks for clarifying that. And
There you
thanks for
go.
having me. I appreciate the
I'm
opportunity,
happy to
as
have you
usual.
back.
No, I
How
love talking to you.
How are you feeling now that we're into a full year after you played? You have a full season under your belt. Now you're into the second. Are you feeling like an expert at this point, or how's it feeling watching it?
Oh God, it's the exact opposite. I feel like every season the game kind of like evolves in a way that I wouldn't have thought, and of course the producers, they're getting better. That's the thing about Survivor that I love. It's like we were just talking about sports before. It's like you can see the advancement of the athlete, but you can also see the advancement of the game. So like how we didn't have Mergatory this year, or like how the idols are, you know, kind of like additions to the ones that already existed, but just like a little bit harder or a little tweaked here or there. So I've been a huge fan of this season so far, and it is weird it being kind of like the anniversary of our season being on TV. Uh, Going to the events is kind of crazy because it feels like you're in kind of like a time warp. But it's been cool so far, though. It's been cool.
Yeah, I always wonder with that because I feel like this is around the time where people start to drop off from going to events where it's like, okay, we're over a season away, so now they start to go. But it seems like 45 is just you guys are just going to keep rolling up to everything. I don't feel like it's going to stop.
Well, a lot of us live in New York, like
Mhm.
Kelly, Brandon, Katora, Jake is in Boston, Emily's in Maryland, and we don't get to see each other outside of, like we're
Yeah.
just kind of like random people that ended up on the show, and then we're all on different sides of the country. So I feel like we kind of use the events to see each other more than anything. And then of course, like it's great to watch the season. We're all still fans, so it is kind of a little bit more than I thought, but I understand it for our group.
And so for your season, you had the
Mm.
idol that was one of the most interesting ones that we've seen in the game, where you had to melt the wax, and you decided to do it at Tribal Council because you didn't have fire going. What
Right.
do you think? You had that crazy scenario. Now we see the evolution of these where we're seeing a box within a box within a box, and each idol is worth a different value and everything like that. What would you have preferred?
The one that they got this season, because it didn't need fire, like it just took like a certain amount of wit that I already kind of had to get the candle, but then everything's at an all stop because not having fire,
Mhm.
so I feel like having the option, and also not going to tribal every 3 seconds, like that. I mean, they got to make their decision on a beach, maybe like one person knowing what's going on. I had to make my decision in 10 seconds in a tribal council booth before I went
Mhm.
home. So I feel like just the pressure of it for me because of not having the candle out, it just made for the perfect like storm of crap, as opposed
Mhm.
to me being able to find it, think about it, talk about it with my alliance, and move forward, in that kind of like hive mindset instead of being so isolated. So I like that they kind of changed it. Same thing with like Sue like chopping
Mhm.
the vine and everything. That was kind of like a flashback for me too. But then it being covered in paint. So that was actually like really cool. Imagine if I would have found, my idol by itself, and then it falls on the ground and now it's in paint. But it's like you're deep into the tree line at that point. Like, what do you do? So I loved being able to kind of like vicariously live through them and play out, what I feel like I would have done.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I probably would have preferred the box. Just,
Was
you
your
know,
your idol was good for multiple tribals, a full
yes.
idol? What was it?
So it was basically like if I avoided using it at that tribal council, it would be good until the merge. And then
Okay.
if I avoided using it at the merge, it would be good until there were 5 people in the game. So being that I was kind of anticipating the swap, which inevitably did happen for our season, and
Mhm.
I felt like I was safe. I'm like, okay, if I end up alone, at least I have an idol. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Or I can use it for leverage, But of course, as soon as you start thinking past the tribal council you're at right now, that's
Yeah.
when you're going home. So Yeah, it was a marshmallow experiment of sorts, but it was cool. Yeah, this one, it was a little bit different, right? Like either they got a one tribal council idol, which was kind of similar, and then it grows in power, kind of. But I
Yeah,
don't
it
feel
went
like it was.
1-3, and
Yeah,
then it was a full idol that was good till final 5. So I
right.
kinda like this one better
Me
than what
too.
they were doing with you, because the other thing is, like, for instance, if you were on Bello on your season, you only go to maybe one tribal council pre-merge, or you could have been
Yeah,
like Bruce and Jake and not gone to any tribal councils pre-merge. And
right.
then you lose that idol if they had found the same one you did. Whereas if they decide, "Hey, like, I'm not going to tribal council and I went for the 3 tribal council idol," you now have an idol that's good for 3 tribals post merge. And especially with how crazy the mergatory and stuff has been, I think it's better. I think it's a good idea. And I've been talking a lot about that on this season. I feel like
Yeah.
the producers and the editors and everybody involved with the show is doing a much better job right now
Hmm.
of growing the game the way it should be grown. Like, they are moving every twist in the right direction. And it's making
Right.
me really excited for the future of the show, which is, I've liked the last couple of seasons, but I'm like, are they making the right choices? And right now I feel like they actually are. And it's blowing my
I
mind.
agree. I agree. And shout out to Andrea and Team Flint and all the work that they do. Like, it's really amazing to watch it grow. I feel like that's kind of like what I was saying in the beginning. It's like it's the only game that I feel like really advances as the players advance, because every season that we watch, now you have 50 Carsons making idols, or making puzzles or whatever. So they have their work cut out for them with the advancement, because I mean the average Survivor player is so smart.
Yep.
You have to get better, and you have to make the game harder. Otherwise you're going to end up with the Sandras and the Tonys. Oh, and eventually it'll be, people won't feel like it's as difficult. People will feel like, oh, well, as long as you do this, this, and this. Like, it used to be, as long as you're not the weakest woman, as long as you're not the weakest man, and as
Mhm.
long as you're not getting on anybody's nerves, you make the merge. But now with
Now
all
they're
of
going out
the,
TK.
yeah, exactly. Now TK's number two.
Mhm.
I'm number three, which I felt like even going in my season, okay, being a stronger, female presence, I'm not going anywhere, but
Mhm.
that's maybe an old school thought. So I love seeing it, and I feel like the fans love it, and they've actually been listening, I feel like, to the fans as well, a lot more involved in y'all's comments on shows like this,
Mhm.
hearing the feedback instead of it just being, viewership and them kind of doing whatever they want to do. They have a now kind of like an uncanny portal into seeing exactly what the fans are thinking. If you get on Reddit long enough, you're gonna
Yeah.
know the climate of what your fans think. So it's been a really cool time to be a Survivor fan and a Survivor player.
I don't know if I recommend ever getting on Reddit long enough, though. I
Yeah,
don't know if I ever can recommend that. I go on Reddit, like, for, like, 10 minutes a week, and I'm like, "Okay, I got the information I need. Let's move on." Like,
for
I can't
sure.
stay there for
Some
too
people
long.
have like homes in Reddit. They
I'm
live
telling you.
there. They are posted up, and I didn't even know that it was that big a deal really until like our stuff got it like leaked and everything like that in the
Mhm.
beginning of our season. I'm like, wow, like who are these people?
Yeah.
Like, and how do they know my Instagram? And why are they there? Why are they posting stuff about my dad or like what,
Yeah.
whatever
I
it is?
know. I
It's
mean, and
really
you got
invasive.
and it can be funny sometimes, but then you got, like, the situation, like, with Sierra this week, where people are sending death threats to Sierra, and they're gonna try to
Yeah.
find her, and it's like, why do people have nothing to do? Like, what do
Oh
you
man, and
do?
I met Sierra at this last event at the RHAP thing
Mhm.
in New York, and she's amazing. And I feel like you do what you can with the cards that you're dealt. Whatever people think, and I'm the queen of crash and burn or not doing what the audience thinks that you should do. But they don't realize that you only have a certain amount of information.
Mhm.
And you have only have a certain even though Survivor is more like a web as far as the game, as a player, your mindset has to be more linear. Otherwise, you get too far in advance as far as like how you think and what you do. So you can get caught with your hand in the cookie jar, or you
Yeah.
can make a mistake. But as long as you recover, or you give yourself the opportunity to recover, which Sierra has, it doesn't really matter. Like
Yeah.
she'll be able to. Survivor's a completely new game every day.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and the funny thing is, if they weren't doing the swap or the mergatory or the merge or whatever it is, if they weren't doing that
Mhm.
this week and Yellow went to tribal next week, Sierra's not the
Mm.
one going home. So Sierra's move isn't a bad move. Like Sierra's
She's
fine.
not.
And Sierra's not the
Exactly.
one who's going home at final 3 on that tribe either. It's her and Sam as the last two standing in any situation.
Exactly. I think that because, her, Annika, and Rachel,
Mhm.
seemingly had, which I believe was Sierra's secondary cover alliance,
Yeah.
so you have her main, number one, which is Sam. You have her secondary cover alliance, which was the breadwinners, which is literally rule number one and number two in Survivor, if we're
Yep.
following, what is it, the Philip manual or whatever.
Yeah. Philip
And
Shepard
then,
rule. Yeah.
yeah. And then her number three was to have somebody that was like indebted to her, giving her information, which is Andy.
Yep.
Now, she always knew that Andy was not completely out of the loop, which was Rachel and Annika weren't privy to that information. So I feel like Sierra is in a great spot, but usually people hate you the better spot you're in. So, we'll
Right
let them
now,
hate for right
and
now.
it's really funny. I like watching the popularity chart. Rob's fact
Hmm.
checker. I don't
Hmm.
actually know if he's affiliated in any way, shape, or form with Rob Sesternino. If like Rob wants him fact checking, but he goes around and he does Rob's fact checker over on
Yeah,
X, and it's phenomenal to look at. Like the
I love it.
information that Rob's fact checker puts out is awesome, and he always, and I think it's a guy, so I just keep
It
saying
is
he.
a
But I
guy.
think
Yeah,
okay,
I've met him a couple times. I'm trying to pull his name down from the cloud, and it's not
from the
coming. But
cloud.
I,
Sorry to put you
I've
on the
met
spot,
him. Yeah, no, I've met him.
but
He's really talented, and
yeah.
yeah, I love watching it too because it's like, I mean, if you're a sports fan, you want to see the stats. It's like being able
Of
to see the
course.
stat sheet, from all of it. So it's pretty
Well,
cool.
and let me see if I can pull up right now because the my favorite one every week from
Hmm.
Rob, and it's always the same thing, is the popularity. That's
Yeah.
my favorite one to look at every week because I don't think anybody disagrees with the internet more than I do when it comes to popularity of people on seasons and stuff. Like I was so pumped when Gabler won, and the internet was like
Yeah.
having a fit. And right
I,
now, I'm
I
looking.
liked when Gabler won too. Gabler was one of my favorite winners just because of how he won. And then obviously me being a veteran, he gave all
Yeah,
his, winnings to charity and stuff. So that was awesome. So
yeah.
love Gabler. Yeah.
Exactly. And so good. We're on the same page on that. I'm looking
Yeah.
over at this right now. So right now, Rome is he has over what is this? Yes, he has about 60% of people who are not a fan of him. So he has the lowest approval rating on the season. Gabe is second, then Tiana, Andy, Caroline, Annika. And as you get to the top, Genevieve, Saul, Teeny, Sam, those are the four most popular on the season right now,
Yeah.
all in a pretty good spot, like you were just saying. And
Hmm.
it's like, can you be confrontational in the way that Survivor fans want you to be confrontational? Because
100%.
they don't like
And
the
so,
Rome type.
but Survivor fans been begging for a villain since the new era started. Then you get Rome, and now you mad. I don't agree with that. Like, and of
People didn't
course,
like
like
you.
I've exactly, like, you make the big decision that would be the big move that kind of paints you as a villain a little bit, and everybody kind of is like, oh, but we don't want you to do it that way. It's like, okay, well, I haven't had fire for 7 days and I'm starving. I don't really care what you want.
Mhm.
And Rome, he's at the top of his game. Like I have mixed feelings about the way that he played, and I love Asia. So of course, like him getting one upper on her, it was like, I did not like that at all. And
Yeah.
I feel like I've been pretty fair with my analysis of him. He does have a hard personality to get along with. I met him in New York as well. It's night and day.
Mhm.
And you'd be surprised. I mean, similar to like the Emily ism, like you'd be surprised how you are on the island versus how you are in real life. Two completely different people just because of the stress.
Mhm.
In some ways, you're trying to be more hyperbolic version of yourself, expression wise. It's a lot. So I feel like Rome, they hate to love him. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Or love
Yep.
to hate him,
Love
and
to
that's
hate him. Yep.
not bad. Um,
Who's
at least at least he's not a Russell. He's not demeaning anyone. In a sense, he's just cocky. He has a big ego. So it is what it is.
I mean, the way I look at it is if they're going to take one person from 47, they're going to take one person from 46, and they're going to put them on 50, and they only have one slot from each season. It's
Yeah,
Q and it's Rome because they're the most fun to watch on TV right now.
yeah,
That's not a
I
knock
agree.
on the rest of these casts. It's just they're the ones who no matter what circumstances they're in on the island, they are going to create chaos in any way they
Yeah.
can. They're not going to be like, oh, this isn't working out for me. Let me take a back seat and wait for something to happen. They're just
Hmm.
going to go and they're going to blow it up. And Rome is
I
doing that.
I agree. You gotta be good TV. You know, nobody wants to see somebody timid or somebody that's afraid. We're past that, era of the multiple chances. I mean, when you're talking about 50, there's been so much speculation about if there's gonna be more days, if there's gonna be more twists, if there's gonna be more players. And with the new era, sharpening your chisel as much as possible, like going in, it's gonna be a harsh battlefield. Like you're gonna have some really heavy hitters in there. You know what I'm saying? So you need to have people that can shake up that type of
Yeah.
level. Like so if you don't have a Q, saying he's gonna quit early on, or you don't have a
Hmm.
Rome that's bragging about fish and has all the advantages, it can just get super. I don't know. Like I would rather one person be grabbing all the attention than it be kind of the kumbaya. Okay, what are we gonna do? Who are we gonna vote for? Kind of energy that could be boring. I don't
Yeah.
want that. I
I
don't want
agree.
that.
I
Yeah,
agree.
as a fan, for sure.
But then what's funny is there's, Rome is crying because he's so happy that his tribe is getting kept together, that they don't have to lose somebody that night. And I think that says a
Uh,
lot about him. Like there's a
yeah,
complexity to it that sometimes the fan base just doesn't want to pay attention to and would rather say, screw that, I'm done with it. But I feel like there
yeah,
is a complexity to it that's been really entertaining. And I gotta say, like, from top to bottom, I think the editors are doing their job because they always put good people on the cast. But right now we're
for
getting to know
sure.
them all. And you can say you're not a fan of some of these people just because the antics, you're not rooting for some of these people, but i
Right.
am i am enjoying all of the people who are on this season so far, and I don't say that about every season.
Me neither. And some people that are really like shocking, I guess you could say, is Genevieve one,
Yeah.
right? Genevieve, she in the beginning, the first couple episodes, it's like, okay, like what's going on with Genevieve? Like they're speaking for her. They're saying that she's with Rome. We haven't even really seen them, strategize. It's been mostly Rome driving that. So like, are they a duo or like what's going on here? But then she came to life in episode 3,
Mhm.
and I was just like, oh, I like Genevieve. And then of course she had the name of our episode where she said the scales be tipping.
I
That
know.
was such an iconic line. I was like, okay, like I really see her going deep. Actually, I
Mhm.
can't wait to give you my predictions, but I see her going deep, and a couple of the this is a very strong female cast that we have. Nothing against the guys, but with Annika going out, right now that was not my plan. As far as
Mhm.
what I thought was going to happen, where she was sitting, I felt like she was good enough, but I wasn't expecting Yellow to go, to tribal council and
Yeah.
lose that challenge. And shout out to Andy. Andy, he played that perfectly. Can we talk about that? Like Andy's ability to
Yeah.
recognize he's on the bottom, make the not blow up his own spot, and wait until the gratification after tribal council to even take it in, because they've been trying to play him like he's been a fool since the first
Mhm.
episode, and this was kind of like I was low key like proud of him. Like
Mhm.
he had like a whole entire arc in the first couple of episodes, and it's been so cool to watch him go from literally being on his back the first episode to now he's having to pull punch, like kind of like pulling punches off his
Mhm.
enemies right now because he didn't even go as hard as I feel like he could have gone. So yeah, super impressive.
I always like, so I don't know how much people follow Tommy Smokes here over at Barstool, who
Okay.
loves Survivor, and he's a bit of a troll when it comes to it, but he's very passionate about the game. And I know a lot of people don't love his opinions in the community, but still, I follow
Yeah.
him. I like to pay
They're
attention.
necessary. You got
They're
to have the
necessary.
balance. Yeah.
It's so funny because he is the type of person, like, I try to keep everything like kind of even keeled. If I don't think that somebody's like having an easy time, I'll say it, but I try not to be mean about it. Try not to get personal. He
Okay.
gets personal, and he was roasting Andy. And then after last week's episode, he said, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm so happy Andy is still on this season. And I
Yeah.
that growth, that to happen in 5 episodes is awesome. Like, it's so
He
much
had a
fun.
full season arc in the first 5
He
episodes.
did.
Like, okay, you're awful. Everybody wants you gone. To we're laying low, Gabler, Alligabler, or
Yep.
whatever, trying to figure out what's going on. The thing that he did with the idol where he put it back, Sam
Mhm,
finds it.
mhm.
He was still able to kind of just like re-get his footing and pivot, re-get his footing and pivot. And I feel like we love to see you fail on Survivor. Like as fans, we like to see you fail. That's just like a thing. Like we like to see you succeed almost as much as we love, if not more, you know.
Mhm.
But we want to see you fail forward. We don't want to see you fail into oblivion. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? We want to see you fail, dust yourself off, get back up. Kind of like with a Jake or with an Owen. You know, you just okay, like, but I'm still here and I'm fighting and I'm digging deep. You know, that's
Yeah.
kind of like one of the themes of the show, right? So I feel like if there was going to be a dig deep award, you know, given to the
Mhm.
first like half of the show, it would be Andy. Like he's been at his lowest, you know, already.
He thought he was
And
out of the game.
he multiple times. Like
Mhm.
I feel like he kind of played the fool until he wasn't one, you know. And now he's starting. They're kind of like open up or awaken a sleeping giant a little bit, and he's kind of starting to feel himself and get a little bit more confidence. And I just loved the confessional that he had, where he's like, "Well, they think I'm dumb, and they
Mhm.
think that I'm, you know, this, and this. And so what I'm gonna do is," and they're literally playing it as it's happening, as he's
Mhm.
narrating the entire. I was like, "Oh, this guy's a genius." Okay, you know, like
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Maybe he just needed those first couple of episodes to get rid of the shock and awe factor. Like, okay, we're on TV. This is for real. That's actually Jeff right over there. Because there
Yeah.
is a wave of that. You know, like we actually are sleeping outside.
Yeah.
This actually does suck. You know, it's not as cool as it looks.
Yeah.
So sometimes it takes a minute for you to take that in. And so I think that's kind of what we saw in the beginning. But now that he's got his bearings, he's doing all right.
Well, and I was saying on one of our episodes last week, I can't remember if it was our recap or we do a digging deeper episode where we just do like a secondary one where we discuss it. But I was saying
Yeah,
he's kind of proving what production was going for with Brandon from your season, where it's
thousand
like
percent.
everybody's like, it's so easy to roast Brandon, right? Like it's so easy to say he couldn't climb the ladder. He's whatever. Why was he even there? And then
Right.
you see what happened with Andy, and it's like, what if Brandon wasn't on the disaster tribe?
I mean, Brandon knows Survivor more than anyone I've ever met in my life. And he can run through, I mean, you don't know all the boot orders in order from all the seasons without having a complex mind. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So
Mhm.
yeah, like we just ended up being the disaster tribe physically, but strategically, I feel like Brandon was a definite asset. He
Mhm.
can be a calming space for people. You know what I'm saying? It's a sounding board for you. But he also was one of the people that kind of did what Andy did, but he did it in the quote unquote right way by giving me the beware advantage. That way you strengthen, you know, your allies. I thought Andy was going to give it to Sam. You know, if you
Yeah.
don't want it, give it to somebody else that you know is more eager to play the game than you. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? But Brandon, to me, that was one of his biggest moments was him being like, I don't want it. I just want to know where it is.
Yeah.
So I would parallel, you know, like kind of make parallels between him and Andy for sure. Of course, they got the flowing hair thing
Yeah.
going for him.
Not
You know,
anymore.
yeah, he just cut it off. I know it looks
I don't
so
even know who he
good.
is. I'm like,
It's
you know that
yeah,
video of the dad who he has the beard and he shaves the beard and the baby doesn't recognize him? That's how I
yeah.
feel with Brandon. I don't know who it is. Where's my dad? I don't know what happened.
Oh my God, it looks so good. We're all huge fans of short hair Brandon. He's killing it right now. But I really do feel like him being on Lulu, similar to really all of us, it was just kind of like, okay, if not, then what? You know,
Yeah.
like if Brandon is on Reba, he's besties with D. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like they're besties right now in real life,
Yeah.
you know? So, or if he's on Bello, you know, maybe he is somebody that can get in with Bruce before, you know, a merge situation or before, because you didn't really see Bruce was kind of like the order giver of the Bello tribe, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? But if you have somebody that has the comic relief that can get along with anybody, if you put him with a character like Bruce early, that could have been, you know, Brandon's triumph. Like
Yeah.
you never know. So it's interesting to think about, but I definitely see the parallels for sure.
Let's throw up this super chat here. Thank you, Cody Brayman. Always love getting these. Do you think this season the editors are utilizing more non-confessional storytelling? I feel like we've seen a lot of Caroline and Genevieve, just not confessional wise. So how do you feel about that as you're watching?
Mm,
Because that's what I was arguing early when people were saying Genevieve wasn't there. I was like, we got her on the bench, we got her with the mama mentality thing. Like
hmm
we're seeing a lot more of people, I feel like, having regular interactions rather than just talking to us. And I think as Survivor fans, we got so used to all of the information we were getting was
Yeah.
people talking directly to us.
No, I agree with what you're saying. I do feel like the culture has kind of changed because of the switch between eras. 39 days, you get a lot more camp life. It's a lot more just visualizing what you think is going to happen. Okay, you see them over here making fire together. They're friends. You see them laying out on the beach together or whatever. They're friends or whatever. But I do feel like with the new era, the confessional has been king,
Mhm.
to really give you the ins and outs of what's happening. So maybe there is a pivot right now going on for production where they're trying to kind of throw the fans off a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing that we use for winner predictions. Some people
Mhm.
they are like, okay, the more confessionals in the beginning, the more likely they are to stick around and make it to the merge. Like you have people that do, stats for that. So I just feel like maybe it's a testament to directors just try or producers just trying to change how the social media or like the fan is perceiving how the game is played and what's going on. Because now you have live tweets, you have people that are, cross-examining
Mhm.
scenes. Like it's so intricate of a fan base. So we would be remiss not to think that they think about all levels
Yeah.
in that way. Yeah.
For sure. All right. So let's talk before we're going to jump into these. We'll try to get right at the half hour mark, right on the money. Let's
Cool.
talk about the fact that Mergatory is, we assume, going away. What we understand from the preview is Jeff says in like this little sneak peek they showed, he says 1 will be safe, 12 will not.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the fact that Mergatory, at least in the form it was for the last 6 seasons, is gone?
I like it. I feel like there was, personally, I didn't have that big of a issue with Mergatory. I thought that it was something that was kind of like becoming a staple for the new era anyway.
Mhm.
However, I do know that the fan response to it was bad to go.
Yeah.
Like everybody hates it essentially because of how much it drastically shifts people's games. It's like, well, you could be riding high in your alliance, and because of the Mergatory split, and you're on the losing tribe, now you're up tribal council, and you're the only one over there, and now you're going home.
Mhm.
Like it's literally it can pivot that quickly. So I like that they're going away from it. It just again lets us know that they're listening. But I don't know, like 12 people not being safe, you know,
I like it.
like,
I like it. That's how it used to be, right? I mean, we never really had
yeah,
merges at 13, but I like the idea
yeah,
that, if you don't win immunity, you're up for grabs. And I mean, we did used to have a lot of 12 people, I mean, I guess actually the last time probably in season 39,
39,
I
yeah.
think I think the merge boot was at 13.
I believe you're right, and it's like kind of like a wake up call for me. It's like, okay, they're starting to mix the eras a lot more, which I feel
Mhm.
like we have been begging for. So again, like getting Rome as a villain this year, not having the Mergatory, um, having the little what was that, the survival social hour or whatever.
Yeah, the
Like
social hour was fun.
that was interesting. Yeah, like okay, we're not at the merge, but let's see what's up. Like
Mhm.
it was almost like the energy of a Mergatory without it being a legitimate, swap. So I like to see that they're playing with different, psychological ways for the players to interact. That was awesome for Teeny. That was maybe not so good for Tiana with her giving so
Mhm.
much information. So you get to see another side of the characters where or the avatars I like to call them,
Yeah.
where they flip a coin and they end up in this situation. What are they gonna do?
Mhm.
So I liked it a lot. I don't know, like, what did you think about it?
I thought it was great.
Yeah,
I thought it was great because it has people interacting, and at the end of the day, like we want to watch people interact. And like I always thought the one world twist was one of the best twists in the history of the show. I thought I thought it
yeah,
worked really well in Palau. They screwed Wanda and Jonathan. Yes, we know,
yeah,
but it was still a fun idea. These people who are just living together and they're all
yeah.
sleeping on the same beach, and
Have
it's
the
exciting.
same exactly. Everybody on the same
Yeah,
beach. I've always wanted them to bring that back. Honestly,
yeah,
like I
and it
know it's
worked in
weird to
one
think
world.
about,
One
but
world's just a
yeah,
bad season.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't even really rate the seasons like that, because I feel like there are good parts in each season, as far as like the players and like how they get on. But them being all on the same beach was just really, really cool to
It's
me.
cool.
And I wish that they would bring that back because then it takes your mind away from, okay, can we build a shelter? You know what I'm saying? Like we have enough arms and legs to get this done. There's gonna be a guy that did construction his whole life, or there's gonna be a person
Yeah.
that steps up to do the fire. Like you're not really thinking about those types of more primitive survival things. Now you're actually gaming a lot more. You know, it's a lot more about tribe lines within the one tribe than it
Yeah.
is about survival needs in the beginning of the season. So it would be interesting to see if they did that again in the upcoming seasons, or maybe even in a returner season.
Yeah.
It'd be cool.
I agree. Well,
Mm.
now that in your background, we just watched Annika get booted for anybody who's been
Ah,
watching. Yeah, I know. I've just been like,
yeah,
I'm listening, but then I'm also like, am I picking up any extra hints on half the screen that I can see? But Annika just
yeah.
did
I
her
thought it would be cool to do
don't
that in the
wave. No, I like it. I
background.
like the setup you have right now. It's very good.
Thanks,
Let's get into ranking. Let's start ranking who you
for
think is
sure.
safest and who you think is going home. So why don't you start off with your number one? Who do you think is the safest person this week?
Hmm. Okay. The safest person this week, I would say, is probably Sam.
Okay.
Just because he's running things, Sam has never really been on the bottom of anything. He's been in the driver's seat the whole time, and even with this Annika vote, it went exactly according, to plan. So I see him being in a safer seat
Mhm.
this week. I don't see him going home. Uh,
My biggest concern, and maybe I'm thinking too old school, is like he's the
mhm,
strongest, he's the most obvious strong person out there, right? Like I'm not saying he is physically the strongest, but he looks the
mhm,
strongest, right? But
mhm.
Sincere here says Sam because he has an idol. He doesn't actually have that idol. That idol was
Yeah.
only good for last tribal council. He just decided not to play it because if he plays it, then certain people are going to be like, well, why didn't you tell me about that? Now he can just
Mhm.
play it off as like it never happened. So he
I
doesn't
like that
actually have the
decision
idol.
though. That was a very
Yeah.
smart decision too. When they were making it seem like he had this big decision, I'm like, "You're safe. Don't play it. You
Don't
need
play it.
Andy."
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. It was no brainer
Especially if you have the
to
numbers, like
for
why you
sure.
don't need to do anything.
You don't need
Yeah.
that target on your back, especially. But like for what I will say about Sam is that his bridges extend to the bottom
Mhm.
and the top. So he's already built his back door with Andy, and he's already had his alliance in a duo with Sierra.
Mhm.
Rachel is technically on the bottom, but Rachel is smart. She's actually somebody that I feel like is going to end up in the end. Um, Even though this kind of ended up poor for her, I know that we are going into, having, the merge and things like that, where I feel like being a free agent going into a situation like that is sometimes more rewarding than being, having your, self tied to this and that group.
Mhm.
Sometimes being open and being like, just be like, okay, like my game is legitimately resetting right now can be the best thing for somebody like Rachel, who has showed a lot of strategic potential in the first part of, this season.
Yeah.
So I'm not, even though Rachel was kind of like caught with the shit face this
Yeah.
tribal council, I'm not gonna put her as going out early just because I believe in the flip once they get to emerge. So but yeah, Sam, I feel like he's safe.
We were talking about Blake and I were talking about if you are going to get
Mhm.
blindsided before a big change is going to happen, and don't be the one who actually gets blindsided out of the game. Like you can be blindsided and you lose your closest ally, but you're still alive. Look at Kyle. Kyle,
Kyle.
that
Yep.
was episode 2, and now he's going into the merge.
Yep.
So I feel like this was great timing for Rachel. All of that said, I have Teeny at number 1 because I
Okay.
also feel like Teeny is coming out of the situation where was left out, air quotes, of the last vote, would
Right.
have voted for Rome for sure. But
Yeah.
Rome can hold a grudge here if he wants to. But I really do believe that at the end of the day, this group of 4 wants to stick together. And if they
Mm.
start eating each other, Saul and Rome are going to eat each other, and Teeny's going to chill. Teeny got to go to social hour last week. Teeny was talking to Rachel. Teeny was talking to Caroline.
Right.
A lot of outs for Teeny this week.
Mhm.
So that's why I have her right there at the top, thinking she's the
Yeah.
safe coming into this.
She's probably my number 2, and then
Mhm.
Rachel would probably be my number 3. I don't wanna
Okay.
get too far ahead, but, like, Teeny, she's been playing an outstanding social game as well. Of course, the blind side with Kishan,
Mhm.
was, a little bit drastic, but we got to credit that to Genevieve, picking up on the things that he was putting down. Um, but yeah, I liked seeing her. And it brings me back to my Rachel comment of like, well, I don't feel like she's going, was because they had that social hour and she talked to Caroline and she talked to Rachel. Rachel now being ostracized, from her tribe. Caroline now having a backdoor to numbers greater than Sue. Because right now, Caroline, her only numbers have been Sue and Gabe,
Yeah.
realistically. So I know that her as a player, she's going to be looking to have a little bit more on her table to eat with. So, I really think that that trio is something to look out for. The Teeny, Rachel, Caroline
Mhm.
trio, doing a lot of maybe like behind the scenes strategizing. They have their dominant groups, except for Teeny. Maybe she still continues with the Rome Saul circus or whatever, but behind closed doors, you might see them talking at a water well or see them, talking at the beach if they get some time. Uh, yeah, I definitely could see that happening.
Yeah, no, I am kind of agreeing with you here. My number 2 is Caroline.
Okay.
Um, and I'm feeling really good about Caroline's position coming into this, not
Hmm.
knowing exactly how this is going to play out. I like her position because, again, I feel like there was a reason they showed us that trio talking to each other at social hour. But even
Yeah.
more important than that, Caroline is nobody's target from her original tribe. Her original tribe
Right.
is everybody's kind of butting heads a little bit. Kyle's throwing around Gabe's name. Sue's throwing around Kyle's name. They're all throwing around Tiana's name. Tiana's throwing around Gabe's name. But Caroline is close with everybody. And
Yeah.
if Caroline's name comes up, or if they say, hey, we want to get rid of somebody from blue, who do you think is the most expendable? Nobody's going to be like, yeah, sure, let's get rid of Caroline. Caroline's name comes up. Everybody's going to raise their hand and say, no, you can't get rid of Caroline.
Exactly. She has definitely put herself in the middle of the web, which is honestly like the new era. The way to win is to be in the middle as
Mm-hmm.
long as possible. And even if you're on the top, you know, even like mhm, even if you're at the top, you want to be in the middle, even of that alliance. Like you don't want to drive too often. You
Mm-hmm.
want the people that are around you to seemingly drive. I mean, I feel like the only person that kind of got away with it longer than and then ended up winning was Dee from my season, where
Mm-hmm.
but that was only because her and Austin had their like sub
Yeah.
alliance. Reba was chopped up so many different ways because you had Julie and Dee, and then you had Austin and Drew, but then you also had Dee and Austin, which her having that sub alliance, obviously romance or whatever, it ended up working in her favor. But she was never driving everything. She just
Mm-hmm.
had all the information. So she's in the middle of the top. I feel like Caroline is positioning herself in that middle of the top type of seat
Mm-hmm.
where she has ears to the ground, people bringing her information, and she just gets to kind of sit back and think, like, okay, what should I do from here?
Mm-hmm.
She hasn't been kept out of any information realistically. Um, I definitely could see her being a huge strategic, and she started getting more airtime too. She wasn't getting as much, but these last couple of episodes, she's been getting more airtime too. So maybe that's a nod from our friends, in the producer side of things as well. So we'll see. But I like Caroline a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Her, Teeny, and Rachel, I could really see them going far as a three. Sierra, maybe they can do some work with her too if she ever wants to leave underneath the umbrella of Sam. Um, 'Cause there's the whole thing about them dating. How is that
I
going to
know.
go once they're
I
all on
know.
the same beach? Hopefully, they kind of can silence that and distance themselves, or people can see that they just genuinely get along. But that might not be good. So I don't know. I
Well,
don't know.
I will say this, talking about Caroline's edit, even though it wasn't a lot, and she's got 9 confessionals on the season so far, she has one in every episode. And I like to look at that because ever since Erica's win, Survivor has made sure that their winner has gotten a confessional in every episode. So Marianne did, Gabler did, even when he wasn't a big part of the story. Jam Jam obviously did. He was always going to. Dee did, and then Kenzie last season. So every winner since Erica has gotten a confessional in every episode. And Caroline, despite not being the biggest personality on this season, and despite only going to one tribal council in the pre-merge, has gotten a confessional in every episode. I think that's pretty important to what's going to happen moving forward. I really do.
I think so too. I think so too. See, I'm new to that side of the game. Like I used to just like, watch it with my family. We make our own predictions. We don't really have the internet helping us out. But now I have like this six man to help me with my predictions,
Mhm.
and you can run the numbers and get to the same kind of like ideology you would have from just like being really intricate from watching the game. So I would definitely say that taking her confessionals, being consistent into account. I mean, Julie, Mama J, she didn't
Mhm.
have a lot of confessionals early in the season, but then she went very, very far.
Yeah.
So I think that, it's like sometimes they are setting us up for the big fall. Like even like with me, I think I had like 25 or 27 in
You
three
had the most
episodes.
absurd edit ever
Yeah.
until Keanu the next season comes out and makes it look like you were barely on the screen.
Right, exactly. Like, but I'm like wondering to myself, like, and then I'm two of the thumbnails, like for the first and then
Mhm.
the third episode. So I'm like, dang, like they really like hyping me. But I know in my own mind, I'm like, I go home third. Like
No,
what
is
is
it
up with that?
repressed memories? You actually went
Right.
to the end, right? Like, you're
Right.
watching it going, "What?"
But I had to like be reminded by my family, like, oh no, like this is also a huge deal. Like, look how
Mhm.
long you were on TV, or look, like we had the Delta Airlines thing where they started putting Survivor seasons, and we're on, the first 5 episodes or the first 6 episodes is
Yeah.
on Delta flights, and it's two of them are my face. So it's like you get your wins in, later. To everybody
Hey,
that's on 46 and 47, you get your wins in later.
we did our second chances vote, and you were one of the top 5 women from the new era to get votes. Now, this was before
Oh
season
wow.
46, but still, I mean,
Yeah.
that's like we opened that entirely up to the fans, and we had everybody in the pool, and like you were one of the top 5. So it's like
Oh
that
man.
you were on enough of this show, and I think people want to know what would have happened. So it makes sense that Survivor was pushing a little bit. I mean, similarly to kind of how they've pushed some of these other players even on this season. Like
Yeah.
Keyshawn got a pretty good
Keyshawn.
edit.
Oh, but he was
Annika got
amazing.
some time. Yeah, like this has been a good.
Yeah,
These have been good
Annika.
moves.
Literally, I like the only thing that I mean, I was in the RHAP event. And I know, we're not supposed to be at the whatever, whatever. But yeah, like so, but to see the energy that Annika got when the screen rolls and she's out, like it was just basically like a standing ovation.
Yeah,
Like, and it's she did what she thought she could with the information that she had. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like, it's sometimes you just get a wrong hand,
yeah.
or you just end up with people on the tribe that you feel like are loyal to you, and they just their interests are different. And
Mhm.
same thing with Kishan. Like sometimes it's one thing that you say that changes everything in someone's mind, and you're not even aware of it. So I would love to see those players back. Keyshawn, I feel like, is a huge strategist. He just didn't really get going. And even Annika, she's obviously a very, prominent, strong woman. Like she was helpful with the physical challenges and stuff like that too. I don't feel like people talk about that enough. And yeah, it would be really great to see them return just to get another whack at it. So join the second chances
I'm telling
group.
you. If they were going to do pre-merge, I feel like they're starting to edit the show better now, where pre-merge is actually a realistic idea, because we're starting to
Right.
see a lot of people. I mean, just from the last couple seasons, between
Hmm.
you, Brandon, uh, Banu, these are massive confessional counts from people who
Right.
won't make it.
Definitely.
Asia had 13
Uh
confessionals in the first episode.
yeah, and see, and also fans want to see people that are comfortable talking about the game within the
Mhm,
game. And I feel
mhm.
like what you mentioning Asia and Brandon,
Yeah,
they are able to speak from a place where they've watched, every single episode. They've spoke from an analytical perspective, and it's obviously comfortable to see Brandon talk on the beach,
yeah,
which is crazy, because he's the panic attack guy. But when
yeah,
you put the camera on him, even when he was having his panic attack, he was cracking jokes. Like he's just great TV in general. Even at his lowest, he's still like, but I'm on Survivor and this is the
yeah.
best time of my life. So I just feel like those types of players, they just excel in when they have the opportunity to. So I don't know, like, would you rather see somebody that was great TV, or would you rather see somebody that was, I don't know, great at Survivor. I feel
You
like
you
those
gotta
two
find the
things.
balance, right?
Yeah,
Like like
exactly.
there is an important balance to find when it comes to that because some of my
Mhm.
favorite players, like Courtney and Tyson, the first time they played, they stunk. Or not,
Yeah,
Courtney didn't stink, but Courtney at the same time was definitely more personality than Survivor. She
right.
was being like, I don't even want to be here, guys. I'm not taking this that seriously. And then she almost wins the game. But then you have somebody
Yeah.
like Tyson who's more interested in, telling Sierra that I like everybody here except for you. And he ends up
Yeah.
being one of the best players to ever play now, like when we talk about him now. So I think you
Right.
have to find that mix of, you need a coach on every season. Like you don't need
Mhm.
coach, but you need you need Rome. Like Rome is this
Yeah,
season's coach. Q was last season's coach. You need that.
for
But then
sure.
also like bring in the players who are really strong players. And when you have that mix going, that's when your seasons are their best.
I agree. Finding that balance, is almost like imperative just to your overall, like, even as a player. Like, people ask all the time, like, how do I get on the show? What do I have to do? It's like, be a good storyteller. You know what I'm saying? Like, talk to yourself in the mirror more. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not the type of person that brings life into a room, maybe practice that. Because the people that end up on our screens, they are that all day, every day, baby.
Yeah.
Like, they eat, sleep, and breathe it. And if you meet them at the bar, it's the same guy. Like, I
Yeah.
even met Kyle. He's a beautiful family, and everything like that. But he really is genuine, down to earth, southern, nice guy.
Yeah.
That just happens to, have all of this charisma and stuff like that to him as well. Like, these are real people with great attitudes and amazing presence, perfect for reality TV. So
Yeah.
it's been really, really cool to be able to meet them in person and see if they're the same on screen versus off screen. And they are 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to the Bryson Wendell event in New Orleans on the
Oh,
30th.
cool.
Hoping
Cool,
that
cool,
some
cool.
people will stumble on in.
Yeah, no, I won't be there, unfortunately. I'm a well, it's not unfortunate, the reason. The reason is actually really cool. I'm a Toys for Tots coordinator. So
Okay.
my last like Survivor trip was actually the RHAP in NY, because I'll be collecting and doing different events and doing distribution days and stuff for the next like couple of weeks throughout the holiday season. So yeah, my link is on my Instagram if anybody wants to donate. Toys for Tots. It's a Marine Corps nonprofit where we bring donations and toys and support the less fortunate in the community, whether that's Salvation Army, Boys and Girls Club, the churches that have support for the families that are local and stuff like that. So I'm in North Carolina. If you're in North Carolina, holla at me. Shoot me a DM.
Send me the link. I'll add it into our description here too and see if
Awesome.
anybody who clicks on that. Because I we'll put it right above the Patreon because that actually is more important than the Patreon. So we'll put
Oh,
that
thanks.
above. You're welcome. We'll put that
I
above the
appreciate
Patreon
that.
sign up.
But yeah, my next thing will be Over the Edge, because it
Okay.
is a charity event and they're going to be letting me raise money for Toys for Tots. So that'll be the next time I'm out and about.
Gotcha. Well, that
Yeah.
sounds all right. Let's go back to ranking here.
Right. I
I'm at
know. We're
three.
so.
I've only done two. You've done three. Here we go.
Right.
Let's actually do this, right? So my number three, I am going to actually go. It's a little hard because you don't know what's going to happen here, but I
Mhm.
am actually going to go and put Andy as my safest person from the Yellow Tribe.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that he's in a good spot because I don't feel like anybody from the other tribes are going to take him all that seriously.
Yeah.
And his tribe, like, what's Rachel going to do? Is she going to be pissed at Andy or is she going to be kind of pissed at Sierra and Sam? I feel like she'd be
Sam.
pretty pissed at Sierra and Sam. So I think
Right.
Andy's in a good spot. I have him at number three.
I um I agree. What you just said made me think about one of the confessionals we saw from Rachel,
Mhm.
kind of admitting like, maybe Andy is in a better spot than I thought.
Mhm.
So maybe there's some foreshadowing there. I don't know. It just, when you said that, it made me think like that. We just saw her talking about how she got the wool kind of pulled on her eyes with Andy a little bit. Um, but I would agree. I would put Andy as my next one as well. I feel like he's, again, we talked about his arc earlier in the podcast. It's shaping up to be a grand finale for him.
Yeah.
If he can just get there. And he has a lot of other attributes that make him, you know, uh, a threat in the game. He can do the low profile thing. He's not necessarily I mean, we saw him at this challenge. It was kind of like he was a liability with the bamboo thing, but
Whatever that shot was.
which was a crazy edit. But I mean, how can you practice to be good at that? You know what I'm
You
saying? But
can't.
outside of that, he's been doing well in challenges. So I feel like yeah, he could be a solid next pick for that. Mhm.
Yeah. All right. So you got him at 4. I have him at 3. So let me jump to my 4. This one's weird, but I'm gonna put Sue at 4.
Okay.
My thinking with this is Sue can be a lot, but why would you ever vote out Sue at a final 13 merge? Like, let's say that 12 people really are in danger and all 13 people go to tribal council and they vote together. Who
Right.
is looking around and saying, if we keep Sue around, we're in so much trouble? Nobody. So I have her at 4. I feel like she can be as obnoxious as she wants this episode. Plus, she has an idol.
An idol. So okay, I hear you.
Mhm.
However, Sue kind of lost me when she was saying that she bit her tongue to try to
Yeah,
explain the fact that she was
she had blood in
covered
her
in red. Yeah. So that makes me worried about like her ability to kind of like pivot in the moment. And it kind of like makes me think like, okay, is she gonna be able to once you have an idol in your pocket, the game changes. It gets a
Yeah.
lot more advanced, you know? So I'm kind of worried. I'm not saying that she's not capable. It's just the reason why I wouldn't put her as like my number 5 is just because I'm worried about her fumbling a little bit. We saw her even in the earlier, like coming at Kyle instead of attempting to pull him into, your alliance or whatever, coming at him because he put the vote on you. It's like Kyle was loyal to who he was loyal to. It's
Mm.
not that he was, coming at you legitimately. It was just y'all were not on the same side of the vote, and that happens sometimes. So in the new era, you got to be able to brush it off, get back to business, and understand that it's better for you to go with him than against him, especially when you have swaps, maybe merge, definitely. It's better. So those are my worries with Sue, but I don't have her super low. I just don't have her that high, if
Yeah,
that
no, I
makes
get
sense.
that. I
Yeah.
mean, in terms of winning chances, I have Sue much lower than 4, but in terms of this week,
Yeah.
I feel like Sue's pretty good. Um,
Okay.
who do you have at 5?
Um, let's see. Genevieve.
Okay.
I feel like Genevieve is safe. Um, barring anything crazy, I feel like she's safe. She's doing very well. She's been, in a great seat. We haven't necessarily talked about her seat as much, but I feel like her attaching herself to Rome early in the Lavo tribe was smart.
Mhm.
Everybody else, is kind of talking shit. She's just, he is who he is, and I'm just gonna let him do what do he. It doesn't really. He might be annoying, but that doesn't mean I can't work with him. Like everybody else was kind of ostracizing him because they felt like he wasn't somebody that they would get along with in school or something. I don't know.
Mhm. Mhm.
So she looked at that as kind of like how the Caleb looked at Emily's situation. It's like, no, like actually maybe I can work with this person. You know what I'm saying? That
Mhm.
everybody else doesn't seem to be able to work with. That can end up being my diamond in the rough. And it was for Caleb.
Mhm.
So yeah, I feel like Genevieve, she's smart. She's got a lot going for her right now.
Yeah, I don't have her right here. I don't have her much further down, but I
Hmm.
don't have her right here just because I'm a little worried that if like they do start to come after Red, who's in control of that tribe? Oh, well, it's Genevieve. Like, and if enough people say Genevieve's in control, that could be troublesome.
Right.
I I another one that's kind of surprised me. So I really feel like a blue should go home this week because there's a stat in the new era of Survivor where if you have the most people or you are tied for the most people at the
Yeah.
merge episode, whatever this episode you want to call it,
Hmm.
somebody from that tribe goes home every time.
Mm.
So that's interesting. Right? It was Sydney, it was Lydia, 43 was Ellie,
Yeah.
44 was Josh, who started off on the tribe that had barely lost. I think they'd only lost once. And then
Right.
your season, it was J Maya, which it
J
wasn't
Maya.
supposed to be J Maya, but J Maya.
Yeah.
And then at 46, it was why am I drawing a blank on last season of all the Mariah.
Mariah.
So
Yeah. Mo.
it's been that way every time. So I still think a
Hmm.
blue is going to go home, but I think Kyle, he doesn't have a vote. The blue tribe might be willing to throw him out there, but I feel like
Mm.
Kyle is savvy enough and he's nice enough that he's going to be able to go out there and say to some of these other people on these other tribes, like, hey, I wasn't in great with my tribe. what do you guys have going on? I'm willing to make it happen.
Be a
And I feel
number.
like he could do that, and he's so sincere
Mm-hmm.
that I feel like he's actually going to be in a pretty good spot here, because he's not going to rub this huge group the wrong way to the point where everybody says, let's just team up on this guy. It's not going to happen.
No, it's not gonna happen with Kyle. Like we saw that even with Sue came at him pretty hard.
Pretty hard.
She's like, "Why would I talk to you? You just write my name down next." And he's just like, "You know what? You're right. This isn't the time
Mhm.
to talk about this. We can circle back later." And I thought that, I mean, for somebody whose butt is potentially in the fire, like that's a lot of restraint. Not
Yeah.
everybody would respond in that way. Some people would pop off right there or demand, to have conversation or whatever. But he was just cool, calm, collected, and kept it pushing. So I think that Kyle has 9 lives in this situation. I feel like he makes it through. Um, is he super high up for me?
Mhm.
Not necessarily. But that's more so because of how his game has gone. It's not necessarily because of him as an individual. I feel like he could be a strong player. I just don't really like his chances coming from blue because everybody is kind of already linked up. Like you have Gabe with the girls. Tiana is kind of a free agent right now. She's throwing Gabe under the bus, which also could take the heat off of Kyle.
Mhm.
So
There's a reason I haven't said Tiana and Gabe yet.
yeah,
There's a reason.
they're low for me too. I love Tiana to death, but I just don't agree with. I don't feel like she had enough ammo to throw out Gabe. Besides the fact that she just is throwing him out. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
I
Like
agree.
when Gabe was throwing out Ellie's name at the merge, it's because she looked in his bag. She went through his
Mhm.
stuff. That's something that is like a offense for most Survivor players. Like, don't look through my stuff. Like, what are you doing? Which happens. I'm not saying, I
Yeah.
wouldn't. I'm just saying it's a bigger cardinal sin. But Tiana, the way that she worded it, it was more from like a personal issue type situation, which I don't feel like is good. I feel like she should have kind of read the room. You got all these blue people here. Ain't nobody saying nothing with you. Ain't nobody co-signing for you. Maybe it's time to just kind of eat, eat and let that die. After the first suggestion,
I
because she.
I agree. What's interesting with Tiana too is like it's
Mhm.
similar to the Annika situation where she's like not feeling like you're as in with who you think you're in with. And what's
Right.
even weirder about her not like wanting to vote for Gabe is she voted with Gabe. Like
Yeah.
her and Gabe voted together to vote TK out of the game. So I don't know where this came from. It felt a little out of left field. So yeah, I
Right.
don't have Tiana soon.
Yeah. No. I guess for next it would be, I think Saul
Okay.
is safe, and that's really just because of the rapport that he has with Teeny.
Mhm.
And Teeny, even though she was left out of the Kishan vote, I see her still being able to kind of run the red perspective. She's a very strategic person. People still come to her to talk to her about things. So I think that if someone's gonna go on red, it's more likely to be Rome than it is to be Saul.
Yeah.
So I'm keeping Saul, and then I'll save Rome for like a later slot.
Yeah. I have
Mhm.
Genevieve, then Saul as my 6-7. I
Okay.
have them pretty much in the middle here, as in the middle as you can be out of these 13,
Right.
because
Right.
I feel like if something goes really wrong, they were a little quiet early. So maybe that edit was in there just because something is going to go wrong for them. But I feel like
Yeah.
they rebounded really nicely. Saul showed a lot of maturity by being able to work with Rome, because there are certain Survivor players who just wouldn't do that. Genevieve
Yeah.
had her finger on the pulse. She's playing a really good game. And I think this Lavo group is the least threatening group of the bunch. Rome could
Right.
be loud and all of that, but if Rome gets super loud, you're going to vote out Rome. If he doesn't get super loud, you got Sam over there, who's a physical threat. You got Rachel, who's killed every single puzzle. You have
Right.
Gabe, who people know is a little wishy-washy, playing the game pretty hard. Like, what's going on? Tiana is somebody people are already throwing the name out of.
For
So
sure.
I feel like Genevieve and Saul, just this episode's okay to just be your quiet self. Just sit there and
Coast.
let it happen.
Yeah. Because they are like low key introverted. Like just
Yeah.
in general, like you kind of seen in this season, they'll be talking, but more so they're just kind of like chilling by themselves or casually next to somebody in the shelter. Like they're not really as overt, with their personality
Mhm.
as much until we get to the confessionals. So yeah, I would say that they need to just sit tight. But
Yeah.
like Sue would be my next
Yeah.
person. Now we're starting to get towards, the latter half of everything. Um, I would just say again because she has the idol. Um, I'm worried about her telling people. I'm
Mhm.
worried about how she goes about the new idol swag that you end up inevitably having.
That's
As
true.
speaking as somebody that has had one for 2.5 seconds, you don't think as you would think that it makes you sharper, and it don't.
Mhm.
It makes you like more relaxed a little bit because you feel like you have this security. But really, you need to be more vigilant, like that much more vigilant if people know about it. Now, nobody knows about suicidal, right? Well,
I don't think we've seen her tell
tell
anybody on.
anybody, right?
I don't
Me
think we've.
neither.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good. If she stays like that, I feel like maybe I should have said her sooner, but I
Mhm.
don't feel like she's not
I don't think
gonna
she's gonna stay like that.
stay like
I feel like
that.
this
Yeah,
episode's gonna start with her telling Caroline
for
because
sure.
they're coming into a merge or something like that, and I feel like that's what's
hmm
gonna happen.
I think she's gonna try to increase her overall, player collateral
Yeah.
and use the idol to make, uh, you know, like everybody else does as a bargaining chip. Like, hey,
Mhm.
come over here, I'll save you if necessary. And she might get knocked off, because of her playing a little bit more overtly. Or I'm completely wrong,
Mhm.
and she keeps it to the chest, and she ends up going far because she plays it on time. To
And we
me,
saw
those are
Carolyn do that,
the
right?
cro-
Like, Carolyn did a
right,
really good job with the idol, and we all thought it was just gonna be a matter of time before she was gonna mess it up, and
for
Carolyn went all the way
sure.
to final 3.
Exactly. So I feel like this is the crossroads for that. Like because
Mm.
she has it and it's about to be the merge, you know what I'm saying? It's like either you need it, so you have to talk about it, or you put yourself in a position that is favorable for long term going in deep and you don't really need it and you can add that to your resume that you don't really need it late in the game. So yeah, it's cool, but we'll see with Sue.
Yeah.
We'll
No, I
see.
know.
Yeah,
Well, gonna be a wild card for sure, and then
for sure.
who do you have at 8?
Who's left? It's
So
like
you've done Sam, Teeny, Rachel, Andy, Genevieve, Saul, and Sue.
okay.
So now I actually have to write down who do you have left.
So
So
I have Rome left,
you have Kyle,
Kyle,
Rome, Tiana,
Tiana.
Caroline,
Okay. Dang, I should have used Caroline already. Yeah, let's put Caroline
Sierra.
next.
Right. So
Yeah,
Caroline.
Caroline is Sierra. I'm worried about, so she's supposed to be there. But Caroline, I probably should have swapped her out before, like I don't know, probably like around like number 4 or 5.
Gotcha.
But it's cool. But yeah, so Sierra, I am worried about in general, but we'll use her next, or we use Caroline and then Sierra next.
Okay.
Caroline, sorry about that. I just missed you. We talked about her earlier, and I thought that I had said her for a number, and then I just forgot. But yeah. So Caroline is in a great position. I don't feel like she owes anybody anything going into a merge. Like it's perfect. But Sierra, because of her kind of like getting rid of her back doors. It's like
Mhm.
she thinks that, or I don't know if she thinks this, but she has the road with Sam and then she has the road with Andy, but little does she know that's a roundabout. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
it's not, and all channels lead back to Sam. Sam has kind of set up, the alliance that they have. He's been doing a lot of work to keep it together. He's been, with Andy. Andy has been bringing him all the information before he gives it to Sierra, at least on camera. So it looks like his loyalty is more to Sam than Sierra, to
Mhm.
me. So it's like getting rid of Annika, ostracizing Rachel, like not bringing Rachel in on the Annika vote, which I feel like could have worked out in Sierra's favor. Like, just tell her, like, hey, I don't have the numbers, but I don't want you to be left out. It's Annika. I don't know if that could have taken place, or maybe Rachel would have taken Annika off. Maybe she doesn't. You know what I'm saying? But either way, now Sierra can only go with Sam and
Mhm.
only go with, by default, Sam and Andy.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that goes for her long term. I don't really like it for her because I feel like it puts her in a box. Um, but we'll see, when she gets into the merge, I feel like she's really going to have to try to do more to build, more relationships because we didn't see. we didn't get to see her in the social hour really building. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? Like we got to see uh, Rachel get to go and everything like that. So I don't know. I don't really like it.
I have Sierra at 8, and then I have Sam at 9. So I have Sam a little bit more in danger, mainly because
Yeah,
Sam is a physical threat that always concerns me when you get into a merge portion of the
for sure.
game. And I do feel like Rachel might be more pissed at Sierra than anybody else,
Yeah,
because she really felt like we are the 3 breadwinners. This is
the
what's going to
breadwinners.
happen. And now Sierra did have to reveal her hand to Rachel that Sam is her closer ally. Like Sierra can
Exactly.
go back to Rachel and say, I want to work with you, whatever. But the argument she has to make in this episode is Annika didn't have her vote and Sam refused to vote for Andy. If he wouldn't do it, the best I can do is a tie, and then you and me are drawing rocks. I'm not letting that
Right.
happen. And then
Yeah.
Rachel will do the whole I wish you would have told me, blah, blah, blah. Sierra can play that off, so she has the chance. But I do think Sierra and Sam are in a little bit of trouble this week just because they had to reveal their hand right before a big change to the game.
I agree. No, and I feel like if that conversation that you just said was going to happen, it should have happened pre-tribal council.
Mhm.
Similar to Teeny and Kishan trying not to burn the bridge with A. Come to her.
Mhm. I just lost your. I just lost your
We.
voice. Oh,
It's
there you
got.
go.
It's gonna be. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's similar to Asia being kind of a little bit tipped off by Teeny and Kishan for the vote that she ended up going home. It's like if you're not having those types of talks before tribal council where you're laying everything out and you're saying like, hey, look, I really feel like insert
Mhm.
whatever, it's gonna be you or such and such tonight. It should have been a similar conversation with her. Like, look, it's you or Annika on the
Mhm.
block tonight. I don't want it to be you. Like, have use that as a opportunity to build real estate, with Rachel. And then once she sees that it goes down the way that you said, y'all can still keep it cute and keep it quiet for everybody else. But now you automatically have a bridge if everything with Sam goes up in flames because he
Yeah.
is, like you said, a bigger player. So yeah, I feel like maybe she got a little bit too blinders up with her
Mhm.
alliance with
Mhm.
Sam and didn't and kind of missed out that opportunity to work with Rachel.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, that might come to fruition in this episode, so we might be finding out really soon,
We'll
what's
see.
going
Yeah,
on with that.
I hope so. I feel like it's vital for the rest of Sierra's game to make
Mhm.
amends with Rachel. There's another thing about the merge; they can say whatever they want. The
Yeah.
person on the bottom, they can say whatever they want, like, and it'll show because of how the dynamic of people like walking around together, going to get water together, going to the beach together. You can see who's with who, just by actions. So if Rachel comes there and she says, "I'm at the bottom," everybody's gonna believe Rachel's at the bottom
Yeah.
because it's the mannerisms of everyone will show that she is at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's just the tribe dynamic. So yeah, right. Sierra's got some making up to do.
Yeah. Well, Rachel's
Yeah.
not at the bottom of my list, but she is one of my bottom 4, even though you had her at
Hmm.
number 3. So
Yeah.
I will say that I have Sarah at 10, or Rachel at 10. Sorry, not Sierra. I have Rachel at
Hmm.
10. So I do think that they're ultimately not going to pick somebody from Yellow to go home this week. I feel like that will be a little bit of a feud, but they don't really have a choice but to come together. So I like Rachel's game. I think she's really good at challenges. I think that the puzzle portion of this challenge could be what keeps her safe this week. So I have her at 10. Um, who do you have at 10?
I have Rome and then Tiana to finish uh
Well,
out my sequence.
you still have Gabe and Kyle too.
Oh,
So did you want Rome
yeah.
at 10, or you want?
Yeah, we'll keep them because Gabe and Kyle, I feel like they're in their own, they're in their own fires as it
Okay.
is. So they could be going home this week too. I don't feel like anybody from Blue is safe legitimately at all. I feel like they kind of because there's so many cracks. There's the crack with Colin Sue. There's the crack with Gabe. Throwing out that Sue and Caroline are working together. The only reason why Caroline was, I would say that I should have put her higher was
Mhm,
because she had the conversation with Teeny and Rachel during the social hour. That's the
mhm.
only reason why I felt like she would be more safe. But inevitably, Blue has been at the bottom of my list. Tiana having the throw out Gabe moment, and during the social hour, I don't feel like it's going to work out good for her. So yeah, Tuku, I feel like with this last episode, they made a lot of mistakes, and they had been making social mistakes up until this moment, just in general. So Rome, he's on the bottom with them, but really kind of musical seats for the last, couple of selections, it's Blue and then Rome. Rome,
So
just because he's such a what's the word? Polarizing person.
yeah.
So at a merge, it's either they're gonna hate him and they're gonna want to get rid of him immediately, or they're gonna like him and they're gonna think that he's somebody that they can work with going forward. He
Mhm.
does have the steal a vote, so he can use that, to his advantage if he
Oh, no, so he
needs
already
to.
used the steel vote. He did use it.
Oh
Because
wait,
he
wait,
was
yeah, he stole it
yeah,
for
yeah,
the
yeah.
Keyshawn vote. Yeah, so
Yep.
he doesn't have it.
He doesn't have anything.
He doesn't have nothing. Yeah, so he's Rome is in trouble. Like,
Yeah.
Rome, to me, Rome is in trouble because I mean he can get fish and everything like that, but speaking for somebody that didn't eat nothing for 7 days, you miss it, but you don't at the same time.
Yeah.
Survivor, you kind of go out there knowing that you're not going to eat, so your body just kind of does like that weird thing where like you don't really get hungry until the idea of food is presented, which is really
Mhm.
weird. Um, but yeah, like I feel like his personality alone, and then Saul and Teeny maybe being able
Mhm.
to kind of throw him under the bus a little bit in certain spaces, it can make it really hard for him uh, going forward. But I mean, he's also very, very athletic, though. I
Yeah.
don't like know if you remember how he was pulling himself up on that box that they had to like jump up.
Yeah.
He was basically just doing like a parkour move. So going into individual immunities, he could be safe,
Yeah.
So, but it's such a toss up that I had to put him towards the bottom, you know.
So you go Rome, Tiana, and then who would you put at the bottom, Gabe or Kyle?
Probably Gabe. That's just because Gabe's confessionals have like a pride before the fall kind of,
Yeah.
whiff to them. I feel like he's been driving a little bit. He's got, you know, the TK vote under his belt, which he feels like he kind of, was the reason for that, I'm guessing. But Sue, we all know Sue was more so the reason because she went and had that conversation with Tiana. Um, he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar a little bit with talking about stuff with Kyle like way too early in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
Um so yeah, I just feel like he's kind of a loose cannon and people will be able to see kind of through him a little bit more than he thinks, which is horrible in Survivor. Like you always want to feel like the front that you're giving is the one that's believed. So yeah, I would put Gabe at the bottom and then yeah, I would put Gabe at the bottom for sure.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
Kyle. Yeah.
I go Rome at 11, and then I go Gabe at 12, and I put Tiana at 13 because I think that
Mm,
Gabe and Tiana, this feels like it's going to be their showdown this week. It feels
yeah.
like last week was the build up, and this is going to be the payoff. And I think this is going to be the showdown this week between the two of them of which one is going to ultimately go home. And I think that Gabe has more people looking out for him.
Mm,
But if Kyle truly can start getting in with some other people, Kyle could push Gabe firmly under the bus and keep Tiana protected because he has talked a lot about how he wants to keep Tiana around. I
right.
ultimately think Tiana will still be the one who goes just because I think her edit has just been very negative. And
I
so I
agree.
think she'll go home, but we'll see.
Yeah, I agree that her edit has been negative. I mean, she's such a strong just representation like in challenges, she's crushing it. She did have the conundrum about the TK situation, but ultimately, I feel like and I have said this, like I feel like TK just should have apologized to her genuinely. It just didn't
Yeah.
come across as that. And sometimes you only have one moment to make it right. And but yeah, I feel like she could end up on the bottom just because of what she said about Gabe in front of Sue. And
Mhm.
Sue obviously was bothered. And now Sue has an idol. So that's also something to come into play. It's like if Gabe is in trouble, Sue has an idol that she could play on Gabe to save him. So mm, I don't know. I just thought about that just now.
I don't know if she would play the idol on Gabe though. I almost feel like she wouldn't want to. Like you're at the individual portion of the game now. I know she's an
Yeah.
emotional player, or at least that's
Yeah.
being portrayed, but I don't know if she would do that. That would be kind of crazy in my eyes.
It would have to be so beneficial for her game that it was crazy. You
And I
know,
don't know how
like,
you can make it so beneficial for your game at final 13.
well, it depends on how solid the alliances are. Like if you're in a final 13, but there's, a Reba 4, there's a
Mhm.
lot less
True.
people to work with. So you might not be able to give up one of your numbers if it came
Mhm.
to it. Um, but I don't know. I don't know enough about how they're going to merge together and how everything. There's just enough cracks. I feel like in everybody's situation, which is perfect going into here. Um, that we'll just have to see. But I'm worried about Gabe. I'm definitely worried about Kyle. Because he, like you said, could just be the name that they throw out there as far as the blue tribe
Mhm.
is concerned, because they have Gabe, Sue, and Caroline working together. Tiana, she's kind of been back and forth, but she has voted with them before,
Mhm.
regardless. And Kyle has been the odd man out. So I don't know. That it's gonna get really I'm this episode, this is when it starts getting good. It's been
Yeah.
good. 47 has been very entertaining so far. The personalities, the blind sides, the different, characters and players and everything like that. But this is when the rubble meets the road and people actually have to start playing. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I got a couple questions I want to throw in here, and this one's random, but this came from Prayers and Ponytails. Hey, Phil and Sabiyah, would you eat the 18 eggs raw? I haven't heard anyone mentioning this option, but I think it's an option since it's safe to do so. Just gross. So they got the 18 eggs last week, and
Mm,
they weren't able to cook them because they didn't have fire.
yeah.
Would you eat the eggs raw?
Negative.
Me
Because
too.
there's no fire, but there's also no refrigeration.
Mhm.
So you don't know if their eggs are turning or how much sun they've got and stuff like that. And the last thing anybody wants on a season is a medic back for any reason, especially something that's self-inflicted for food.
I
So
wouldn't
no,
eat those things even if we got fire the next day because of what you just said. Them sitting out
yeah,
that long,
that's too long.
I'm
It's
out.
too long.
No thanks.
Yeah, and we don't even know. Like I know for us, like the reward or whatever, it sits on whatever table up until it's given to you. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
like I remember when we had the fruit, it wasn't cold. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So like the eggs, like I don't see them like, putting them in the cooler during the challenge and then, coming up. I don't know. But I just wouldn't think it would be safe, one. Two, like we've seen so many people throw up from eating normal things on
Yeah.
Survivor, and having sickness from having an overwhelming increase in nutrients to the system. So something as protein forward as eggs,
Cody
uh,
Brayman says unprocessed eggs can last 2 weeks. I don't care. I don't want them. I wouldn't
yeah.
no way. I already said
Unprocessed,
I
right?
wouldn't
Like
eat
I know
red
what he's
meat.
talking about.
I wouldn't eat red meat if I went on Survivor because I had a colon surgery and I feel like I'd end up getting medevac the way Joe Del Campo
Yeah.
or Bruce got medevac, where not Bruce from 45, but Bruce from all the way back in Panama because they ate red
Oh,
meat
okay.
after
Yeah.
not eating and their body couldn't handle it. And that would happen to me. I'm
You
not
have
doing
to
that.
think about it. You have to
Yeah.
think about it. Like, and I feel like everybody, like, even with him making, like, I do know that, like, okay, like they're like freaking, what is they call the grass fed,
Yeah.
chickens or farm,
Yeah.
whatever. Okay, cool. Yeah. If you add that factor, it does kind of change things. You can kind of keep them on the counter or whatever. But this is not the counter in your house. You know
No.
what I'm saying? All
This
due
is the
respect
counter
to
where it
that
could be
comment.
95
But
degrees.
this is, yeah, this is like the beach where you don't really have places to house eggs just chilling, and it's very hot, it's very humid. So yes, in a normal living kitchen counter situation, maybe 2 weeks on an island in Fiji, maybe not. You
Maybe not.
know.
I agree. Um, no, go ahead. Were you gonna finish out on that? It sounded like you were
No, I
really
was just saying the maybe is what we worried about. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like it's
exactly.
like because
Is
if
it
you
worth
right,
potentially losing your chance in the game so that you
yeah,
can have 2 eggs that you're not even gonna realize are in your stomach because you're so hungry anyway?
right, and then they're not even cooked eggs. So it's like I me personally, not only do I have to get through eating them, which could make me sick, because just the texture in general.
Mhm.
Now I have to wait the however many hours to see if it's gonna make me
Yeah,
sick,
exactly.
and that would be the horrible time for me,
You'd end up
is the
stressing
waiting.
yourself into being
Yeah.
sick. Exactly.
So I'm good on that. I'm good on that.
All right. Here's my last couple questions.
Okay.
First one, who do you think wins this season?
It's between Teenie and Rachel for me.
Teenie and Rachel. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, season 50 coming up. Who from your season would you want to see play again the most?
Emily.
Emily, not even a thought. That was such a fast answer. Has
Yeah.
anybody convinced her to do it?
Oh, well, like, I'm hoping that, us as a cast, we can convince her the most. Like, we want to
Mhm.
see her get a second chance just as much as any other fan. Speaking for myself, all of my game was played with her.
Yeah.
She's an amazing human and super hilarious. I really feel like her personality didn't come through in the way that we know her
Mhm.
as much. So I would love for her to have another opportunity to, show people who she is.
I got to
But
meet her at the premiere of 45, and she is
yeah.
so funny.
She's
Loved her.
great. She's outstanding, and that's what I kept, I guess, echoing in my exit press. Is like what you guys got to see. Yeah, that was her, and it was crazy. Like it was like, girl, what is wrong with you? Like,
Yeah.
are you okay? But it was definitely the island, brain that we all
Mhm.
get that kind of just
Mhm.
took over and manifested in that way with her. But yeah, Emily, I would love to see Kendra get another play
Yeah.
too. Just because I don't feel like she got enough. And Kendra is actually an amazing human being. She
Mhm.
backpacks countries for a living. Like it's crazy,
We had her on the podcast, and she was doing it from some island, like, house thing in
Yes, in
Hawaii where, like
Hawaii. Yeah.
yeah,
She
where, like,
was
it what
oh,
was it?
sorry. Yeah, it was a fruit forest that she was
That's what
helping
it was.
start
Yeah.
up with her friends and everything like that. Like she's so pro earth. I love her down. Like I know during our season she was living in an earth ship in Arizona. I know
Mhm.
she's about to go to Guatemala on like a huge hike for like a certain amount of days. Like she's really badass. So
Mhm.
I don't feel like y'all got to really see any of that on our season as far as just how prominent outside of the challenges. Of course, she was like, kind of like a challenge beast
Yeah.
from the female side in our season, but just her personality and stuff like that, I feel like it got kind of shine, like the light got shown in a certain way, and they
Yeah.
just kind of didn't pivot back to her being like more strong minded and things like that. So, yeah, I would love to see Kendra get another shot as well.
Mhm. And then whole history of the show, who would you most wanna see play again?
Dang, probably Bryce.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
I love
I
that.
know that's probably like a weird answer, but I love Bryce. I feel like I would like to see him play again, just because of everything that he's been able to do with his Survivor fandom after. It's
Mhm.
such a amazing like business that him and Wendell have been able to build and things like that. And I see them a lot. One of my good friends, but I know that he wants to play again, and it would be amazing to see him, now after all
He's
these
so built
years.
for the new era, and when I said
Yeah.
really the way I did, it was just more of I feel like people don't say Bryce's name. I feel like everybody wants Bryce to play again, but nobody ever says he's the number one. So,
Yeah,
I agree, though. I feel like the new era was meant for Bryce, right? Like, this is the
definitely.
time for him to play. Cagayan was not Bryce's time. This is Bryce's.
Oh, right. Like Kagayan was such a pivotal season just for how players manifest in general. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like it was a a little bit of the turn of the tides more towards the new era, I would say. Just personalities of the characters and stuff like that is a lot
Mhm.
more prominent.
Yeah.
But Bryce in the new era, with strategy and stuff like that. And then, I mean, if y'all thought the response for Asia being on the show was crazy, like imagine if Bryce is back on the show, like everybody would be rooting for him. So
Yeah.
I feel like his impact just on the new era in general, with him and Wendell has been really crazy. And I feel like seeing him back on the beach would be so cool.
I
Like,
agree.
yeah.
That'd be awesome. That's
What
a great
about you?
answer.
What's your
I
all
always say
time?
James, Courtney, or Todd that or Amanda.
Okay.
Any of those four from China. If one of
Yeah,
them is on season 50, I'm going to be a very happy person.
for
Um,
sure.
I love the Bryce answer though because I agree. Like Bryce has no business. Like you have to think with Rob Cisternino, he finished third on his first season. He went back
Yeah,
for All Stars. Like so, it
yeah,
makes sense that he was able to build this podcast and do everything. But like Bryce has no business being as big
yeah.
as he is, and he's done it by just being a likable guy who's
Seriously,
positive in the community and just like loves doing it.
and
So I love that.
it's so he's such just genuine. Like
Yeah.
if genuinity could become currency, He'd be
Yeah.
the richest man in the world. He's
Yeah.
just like, you talk to Bryce and you understand why he was casted.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge fan of him. James, I love James. That's
Yeah.
one of my favorite players ever too. So I mean, especially with him, like hurting his leg during the
Oh
season and
God.
everything
I
like
know
that.
he got medevac twice essentially.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, just tough as nails. Like
yeah.
you don't really see too much of that nowadays in the new era and stuff like that. Like people that stay on the island with
Mhm.
injuries, and are able to kind of like still. I mean, he did a challenge with his leg basically,
Yeah. He
broken.
tried to
With
race JT down the beach with a
right
leg brace on.
with a leg brace. So yeah, that guy James, wherever you are, we want to see you back. And
I
he's
know.
so hilarious too. Just everything about him is just big, and the banana etiquette comes to mind and everything like that. That it's just great. So James would be cool to see back. I agree.
Yeah. Well, this was a really fun podcast. We're gonna wrap it up
Definitely.
now, but this was great. Thank
Okay.
you so much for coming on again, Sabiyah. This was wonderful.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Everybody else, like the video, subscribe to the channel, become a patron, patreon.com/the specialist. I'm going to throw the Toys for Tots link into the description. So if you want to donate
Yeah.
there, go ahead and click that link. I'll make sure I get that from Sabiyah as soon as we end this right here. And then we'll be back on Wednesday night after the episode recapping. That's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to be doing that. See who goes home at this not actual Mergatory. So what a wonderful thing. Can't wait to see how this is
Yeah.
going to play out. Sabiyah, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.